You believe you are asleep and that you must struggle to wake up. This is not the truth. The struggle itself is the final dream. There is a stirring within you, a silent upheaval so profound that you are overlooking its very signs, mistaking the dawn for a deeper night. You are not approaching an awakening, you are in its midst. And the evidence is not in visions or ecstasies, but in a series of subtle, often unsettling shifts in your own consciousness. These are not feelings to be sought, but conditions to be recognized. What you have called anxiety, detachment, or even loss may in fact be the precise indicators that a major spiritual transition is already taking place within you. In the next moments, we will uncover these 10 silent signs. Watch closely, for you may discover that what you have been fearing is actually your own liberation. Consider, then, the first of these profound indicators a deep, pervasive stillness that settles within you, not as a state of peace you achieve, but as a presence that arrives of itself. This is not the quiet of a calm day or a meditative technique successfully applied. It is something far more radical and often initially disconcerting. You may find it in the midst of what was once chaos, a sudden, hollow silence in the core of a familiar anxiety, the dramatic drop in volume of your own internal narration during a crisis. The thoughts are still there, perhaps, but they have lost their weight, their urgency, their ability to command you. It is as if the constant radio station of your personal drama has been switched off, and in its place is not another station, but the clear, empty bandwidth of static. This unsettling inner stillness is frequently misinterpreted. You might fear you are becoming detached, uncaring, or depressed, because the old engines of worry and compulsive reaction are no longer firing. Where once a family argument would send you into a spiral of planning, defending, and emotional turmoil, you now observe the words and feelings rise and fall within you, while something deeper remains unmoved, a silent witness. This witness does not judge the argument as good or bad, it simply is. In daily life, this manifests in moments where you catch yourself not reacting. Your boss delivers unfair criticism, and instead of the familiar heat rising in your chest, the frantic mental drafting of rebuttals, there is a pause, a spacious, quiet pause. In that pause, you are not an employee being wronged. You are something else entirely, observing the play of characters. This can feel alien, as if you are losing your identity, because, in a sacred sense, you are. The thrill and the engagement with this sign come from recognizing it not as a loss, but as the first tangible evidence of a shift in identity. You are not the thinker of the thoughts, not the feeler of the emotions. That which is aware of the anxiety is itself not anxious. That which notices the stillness is itself still. This is the dawning of what has always been your true nature as conscious presence. The old self, the persona built on a foundation of reaction and narrative, interprets the stillness as a threat. It will try to fill the silence, to resurrect old dramas, to label the equanimity as apathy. Do not be fooled. This stillness is the very ground of being beginning to announce itself from within your own experience. Imagine standing in your kitchen, overwhelmed by the mental list of chores, obligations, and unresolved problems. Suddenly, for no reason, the pressure vanishes. The list is still mentally present, but it is like writing on glass. You see it, but it has no substance. The sink full of dishes, the unpaid bill, the unresolved conversation, they are all there, but they are not in you. There is space around them. This is not procrastination or avoidance. It is a literal expansion of consciousness where the problems are no longer at the center of your universe. They are objects within a vast, still awareness. You may move to wash the dishes, but you wash them from this stillness, not from a story of resentment or burden. The action is performed, but the actor has changed. This sign is a threshold. It means the vibration of the world is beginning to fade in its power to dictate your inner state. The noise is losing its authority. And because we have so long equated our identity with that noise, with our opinions, our grievances, our ceaseless planning, its cessation feels like a form of death. But I tell you, it is the only true birth. The engagement now is to cease fighting this stillness, to stop trying to resuscitate the old mental turbulence out of a misplaced sense of familiarity. When you find that quiet space in the midst of the storm, do not rush to leave it. Lean into it. Inquire gently, what is it that is aware of this silence? Do not seek an answer in thought. Rest in the question itself. This stillness is not a destination to reach. It is the foundation being revealed as the clutter of the false self is gently, persistently, and sometimes startlingly cleared away. It is the universe in its infinite intelligence, preparing the vessel for a new kind of activity, one that springs not from personal will, but from inspired impulse emerging out of this very quiet. Watch for it. It is the most significant non-event you will ever experience. As this inner stillness establishes its presence, it initiates a profound and often distressing process, the loss of old anchors. These anchors are not merely habits or preferences. They are the very structures upon which you have built your sense of self and security. They are the beliefs, relationships, ambitions, and even spiritual practices that once provided meaning and direction. Their dissolution is not a sign of failure or regression, but a necessary demolition, clearing the ground for a foundation that cannot be shaken. You will feel this as a growing sense of detachment from things that once defined you. The career you tirelessly built may suddenly feel like a hollow costume. The political or social ideals you fiercely defended may now seem like distant echoes of a conversation you are no longer having. Long-standing friendships, once a source of comfort, may begin to feel strained, not because of conflict, but because the glue that held them together, shared complaints, common enemies, mutual dependencies, has lost its adhesive power. You find yourself listening to a dear friend recount their familiar dramas, and while love remains, you can no longer find the hook within yourself to engage in the old pattern of co-signing their story. There is a silent withdrawal, not from the person, but from the game itself. This can feel like loneliness, even cruelty, but it is neither. It is the inevitable consequence of shifting inner dimensions. You are, quite literally, vibrating at a different frequency, and the old harmonies no longer resonate. Consider the practical moments. You sit down to enjoy a meal you've always loved, and while the taste is the same, the pleasure is thinner, more fleeting, as if you are receiving the sensation from a greater distance. You open a book that once captivated you, and its words seem flat, like symbols without a key. The hobby that filled your weekends now feels like a meaningless motion. This is not the arrival of depression, though the mind will rush to that label. It is the deconstruction of the pleasure principle that once governed your life. You are being weaned from seeking sustenance from the external. The thrill here lies in understanding the loss is not of the thing itself, but of its power over you. The anchor is not being ripped away into a void. It is being revealed as having never been truly attached to the ocean floor of your being. You are the ocean, and you are discovering you cannot be anchored. This extends powerfully into your spiritual or religious life. The rituals, prayers, or readings that once brought solace and connection may become dry, mechanical, even frustrating. You may stand in a place of worship and feel a stark separation between the form being presented and the formless reality you are beginning to sense within. This is a critical juncture where many turn back, fearing they have lost their faith. I tell you, you are losing only the container, not the content. You are being moved from a relationship with a concept of God to an intimacy with the living, nameless reality that concepts can only point toward. The practices were a finger pointing at the moon. You are now being asked to look directly at the moon, and the finger, having served its purpose, is fading from your view. The engagement with this unsettling sign is to resist the powerful impulse to rebuild. When an anchor loosens, the ego's immediate response is panic, followed by a frantic search for a replacement, a new relationship, a new passion, a new spiritual teacher or dogma. You must allow the emptiness. You must sit in the seeming hollow of a lost ambition without rushing to fill it. This is the period where the old land has receded from sight and the new is not yet visible. You are in the spiritual wilderness, and it is here, in this uncharted territory, that you are being remade. The very ground that feels like it is giving way is, in fact, the only solid ground there is, the ground of your own unconditioned being, free of all props and definitions. Watch as the attachments fall away, not with a sense of tragedy, but with the quiet observation of one watching autumn leaves detach from a tree. They served their season. Their release is not an end, but a necessary part of the cycle, making space for a sap that will rise in its own time, from a root that is deeper than you have ever known. This loss is, in fact, the preparation for a discovery. You are about to find that you have no need of anchors, for you are the very substance in which all things float and have their being. following the unsettling quiet within and the disorienting loss of your old moorings. A third, even more startling sign emerges. The world around you, in all its vivid intensity, begins to appear translucent. It loses its solidity, its absolute authority over your consciousness. This is not a philosophical concept you adopt, but a direct, lived experience. The illusion does not shatter with a grand revelation. It simply thins, like a veil becoming threadbare, allowing a different light to seep through the familiar patterns of your daily life. You will notice this first in moments of profound ordinariness. You are driving your usual commute, the same route you have traveled 1,000 times, past the same buildings, the same billboards, the same flow of traffic. And suddenly, without warning, it all seems to flatten, as if it were a meticulously painted stage set. The emotional weight you assign to the traffic jam, the frustration, the urgency, dissolves. The building where you work no longer appears as a locus of your ambition or anxiety, but as a temporary arrangement of material, light, and shadow. This is not dissociation or a trick of the mind. It is perception cleansing itself of projection. You are seeing the world for a fleeting instant, without the overlay of your personal story. The thrill is in the sheer impersonality of the vision. It is both liberating and, initially, deeply unnerving, for if the world is not as solid as you believed, then what are you? This seeing through the illusion manifests powerfully in your interactions. You observe a heated political debate on a screen, and instead of being drawn into the polarity, you witness the raw, pulsing energy of belief and identification itself. You see the actors on the stage, not the roles they are playing. In a personal conflict, you may find yourself hearing the words of the other person not as attacks on your identity, but as expressions of their own pain and conditioning, emanating from a character they themselves are trapped within. You see the mechanism of the human drama, the gears and pulleys of ego and reaction, and in that seeing, you are no longer a captive player in that particular production. This does not make you passive or indifferent. It allows for a response, if one is needed, that is free of the entanglement, a response that may carry a clarity and compassion that surprises even you. Consider your relationship with objects and status. The new car, the desired promotion, the perfect home. These idols of the world begin to show their true nature. You may still engage with them, but the craving for them as sources of fulfillment evaporates. You see the advertisement not as a promise, but as a carefully engineered trigger. You see the social gathering not as a proving ground, but as a ritual of masks and gestures. This is not cynicism, which is a negative attachment. This is discernment, which is freedom. The world's treasures are revealed to be made of tin, and the frantic scramble to acquire them begins to seem like a bizarre dream from which you are gently waking. The engagement here is to resist the mind's attempt to re-solidify the mirage. The mind will argue for the reality of problems, the urgency of desires, the solidity of loss. You must honor the deeper knowing that is awakening within you the knowing that perceives the endless flux and the emptiness at the heart of all form. This sign reaches into the most fundamental layer of your experiency time itself. The relentless pressure of past and future begins to ease. Regret and nostalgia lose their emotional sting. They become old photographs in a forgotten album. Anxiety about tomorrow becomes a faint, distant noise. You find yourself living more consistently in a present moment that feels inexplicably spacious, not as a point on a timeline, but as the only place where life actually occurs. You are late for an appointment, and instead of the familiar narrative of self, recrimination, and frantic haste, there is simply the act of moving, the sensation of breath, the sight of the street. The problem of lateness exists in a conceptual world that in that instant has lost its grip on you. You are here, and here is surprisingly complete. This gradual thinning of the world's reality is the preparation for a staggering revelation. If the world you perceived was always an interpretation, a construct of consciousness, then what is doing the perceiving? As the projected movie on the screen begins to flicker and fade, your attention turns irresistibly to the source of the light, to the silent, empty screen upon which all of it appears. The world does not disappear, it is transfigured. It ceases to be a prison of separate objects and becomes a seamless, living expression of the one consciousness that you are. The tree outside your window is no longer a separate thing. You see, it is an appearance within the seeing itself. This is the great turning point. You are no longer a character navigating a solid world. You are the awareness in which both the character and the world are arising, like waves on an ocean that you are. The engagement is to rest in this seeing, to allow the deconstruction of illusion to proceed without interference. Do not cling to the fading pictures. Turn your attention toward the light that reveals them. As the projected world reveals its illusory nature, a profound and transformative quality of consciousness begins to emerge from within that very transparency. This is the fourth sign, the dawning of an impersonal and unchanging love. Do not mistake this for the personal affection, the conditional warmth, or the passionate attachments you have known. Those are wonderful human experiences, but they are waves upon the ocean. They rise, they crest, they fall. What is now stirring is the ocean itself, a boundless, silent, and impartial presence of love that does not originate from you, but is revealed as the very substance of which you are made. You will recognize this not in grand gestures, but in quiet, unexpected moments where the boundaries of the personal self soften. You are in a crowded place, a market, an airport terminal, and as you observe the faces moving past, a stranger's eyes meet yours. In a flash, there is no stranger. There is no assessment, no story, no separation. There is simply a recognition, a silent acknowledgement of being. It lasts only a second before the mind returns with its labels, but in that second, you have touched the impersonal love that connects all forms. Or perhaps you witness a scene of suffering on a news broadcast, and instead of the familiar personal reactions of pity, horror, or the urge to mentally assign blame, there arises a vast, still compassion. It carries no weight of sorrow, no burn of outrage. It is a clear, luminous empathy that sees the suffering as part of the dream and holds the dreamer within a field of unconditional acceptance. This love does not discriminate. It flows as easily toward the one perceived as causing harm as toward the victim, for it sees both as expressions of the same confused consciousness. In your daily life, this will revolutionize your closest relationships. You find yourself listening to your partner or child without the filter of your own needs and history. Your love for them is no longer a feeling that fluctuates with their behavior or your mood. It becomes a steady background presence, like the hum of existence itself. You can be in a disagreement, and while you may engage with the practical issue at hand, there is no longer the undercurrent of threat to your love. The love is not for the person as a personality. It is the space in which the personality dances. This can be perplexing to others who are accustomed to love as emotional currency, as something given and withdrawn. Your love now simply is. It does not need to be earned, and it cannot be lost. You may perform the same acts of kindness, making a meal, offering comfort, but they spring from this boundless source, not from a sense of personal duty or the desire for connection. The action is full, yet the actor is empty. The engagement with this sign requires a careful discernment. The mind will desperately try to personalize this force, to claim it as your own improved emotional state, to direct it exclusively toward deserving objects. You must see this temptation. Notice when a feeling of benevolence arises and the mind whispers, "I am so loving now." That I is the old claimant seeking to own the sunrise. Impersonal love cannot be owned, it can only be allowed. It is the natural state of awareness when it is not contracted around a personal story. It is what remains when the need for love, the hunger for validation, has been outgrown. This is why its arrival often follows the loss of old anchors. The heart, stripped of its specific objects, discovers its true, objectless nature. Consider a moment of profound irritation. Someone close to you acts in a thoughtless way. The old reaction begins to form, a tightening, a mental narrative of grievance. But then something new occurs. From beneath that tightening, a quiet warmth wells up, unrelated to the offense. It does not excuse the behavior, but it sees the behavior as a cry from within the other's own dream of separation. Your response may be firm, setting a clear boundary, but it is delivered from this calm, compassionate center. The sting is gone. The personal hurt has been bypassed. You are acting from love as intelligence, not love as sentiment. This unchanging love is the most direct evidence that you are not who you thought you were. The personal self is a vortex of changing preferences, conditions, and emotions. Yet here is a quality of pure affection that is stable, unwavering, and utterly selfless. It does not say, "I love you because." It simply is love emanating as your true presence. The thrill lies in surrendering to its impersonality. It means you are loved beyond measure, not because of your achievements or character, but because you are an appearance within love itself. And it means you are freed to love without fear, without exhaustion, without the need for return. You are beginning to function as a clear window for an infinite, radiant sun that shines equally on all it touches. Your relationships become arenas not for getting personal needs met, but for witnessing this impersonal love incarnate in the beautiful, fragile forms of those who share your journey. Watch for its emergence in the quiet moments, in the gaps between thoughts, in the space after a reaction has subsided. It is the heartbeat of reality now becoming audible within your own silent being. As this impersonal love establishes its silent reign within you, a profound and paradoxical shift in your orientation toward life takes hold. This is the fifth sign, the end of seeking. The relentless pursuit, the spiritual striving, the deep-seated belief that something essential is missing and must be found in another time, place, condition, or state of consciousness. This entire engine of seeking grinds to a halt. It is not that you have found the final answer. It is that you have realized the fundamental flaw in the question. The seeking itself was the barrier, a frantic motion that obscured the very presence you sought. You will notice this as a quiet cessation of the inner pilgrimage. The books on spirituality gather dust, not from neglect, but because you open them and sense you are reading maps of a territory in which you are already standing. The desire to attend the next workshop, to find the perfect teacher, to master the advanced technique simply evaporates. There is a recognition that no new piece of information, no external authority can provide what is already silently present as your own being. This is not spiritual arrogance or a sense of completion. It is a humble and awe-filled realization of sufficiency. The thrill is in the profound relief, the laying down of a burden you did not even know you were carrying, the burden of becoming. In daily life, this manifests as a disappearance of existential hunger. You stroll past a shop window displaying the latest symbol of success. The sleek car, the elegant attire. Previously, a subtle energy would have been engaged, a flicker of desire, a whisper of if only, a momentary comparison. Now, there is nothing. The object is seen, but it does not trigger a story of lack or a program of acquisition. It is simply a form empty of promise. The same cessation applies to the search for states of being. You no longer meditate to achieve peace, for you understand that the you who seeks peace is the very disturbance. You may sit in silence simply because it is the natural expression of what you are, not as a means to an end. The frantic search for happiness, for the perfect relationship, for the ideal circumstances, all of it loses its compulsive charge. You are, in a most practical way, coming to rest. This end of seeking is most startling in your internal dialogue. The constant, subtle questions that have underpinned your life. Am I on the right path? Is this all there is? How can I be better, more spiritual, more enlightened? Begin to fall silent. They are seen as echoes in an empty room, having lost the anxious, seeking self that gave them resonance. When a challenge arises, you no longer immediately think, what book has the answer? What teacher should I ask? Instead, there is a turning within, not as a seeking, but as a gentle abiding in the stillness that you are, allowing the intelligence of life itself to present a response from that quietude. You are moving from a paradigm of seeking answers to one of allowing wisdom. Do not mistake this for apathy or inertia. Activity does not cease. It is transfigured. You may write a book, but not to prove your wisdom. You may build a business, but not to fill a void of self-worth. You may engage in a passionate cause, but not from a place of personal rebellion or the need to fix a world you see as separate from yourself. The action arises spontaneously, joyously, and completes itself without leaving a residue of, for what? It is life living itself, and you are the clear space in which the dance unfolds. The engagement now is to trust this cessation utterly. The mind, whose very identity is the seeker, will stage subtle revolts. It will suggest you are stagnating, that you need a new goal, that this peace is actually a form of spiritual laziness. See these thoughts as the last twitches of a phantom limb. You are not abandoning growth. You are discovering that your true nature is already and always has been whole. Growth now is not an accumulation, but an ever-deepening surrender to that wholeness. Imagine standing in your garden. Previously, you might have looked at it with an eye toward what needed improvement. A weed to pull, a plant to move, a new feature to desire. Now, you simply stand. The garden is perfect in its isness. You may still pull the weed, but it is a natural movement within the perfection, not an attempt to achieve it. This is your relationship with your entire life. You are no longer seeking a better moment, a better version of yourself, a better understanding. You are at home in the eternal present, and from this homeness, all creative and necessary action flows with an effortless precision that seeking could never muster. The search was a circling of the perimeter. The end of seeking is the quiet, undeniable realization that you have always been at the center, and the center is everywhere. The end of all seeking ushers in the final, and most authoritative of the silent signs, the awakening of an inner authority that is absolute and unshakable. This is not the confidence of accumulated knowledge or the arrogance of a strong personality. It is the quiet, unequivocal knowing that springs from the very source of being itself, a direct line to truth that bypasses all intermediaries, all doctrines, all external validation. You are no longer a student of truth. You have become its living expression, and in that expression, you find the only teacher you will ever need is the silence of your own conscious presence. This authority announces itself in moments of decision or confrontation where, in the past, you would have looked outward for guidance. A major life choice presents itself, a change of career, a geographical move, the end or beginning of a relationship. You consult no one. You scour no books for wisdom. You may listen to counsel, but you do so from a place of detached appreciation, for you are waiting not for an external opinion to resonate, but for the inner movement of your own being to declare itself. And it does with a clarity that is undeniable. It is not a loud voice or a compelling emotion. It is a silent, directional knowing, a deep inner yes or no, that carries no rationale and brooks no argument. To follow it may defy all conventional logic, yet to deny it, it is instantly felt as a profound betrayal of your very self. The thrill is in this radical self-trust, a trust placed not in the personal mind, but in the infinite intelligence that you are. In daily interactions, this authority manifests as an impeccable honesty that is both gentle and unyielding. Someone asks your opinion on a matter, and you find yourself speaking not from a rehearsed position or a desire to please, but from a clear, spontaneous wellspring of insight you did not know you possessed until the words are spoken. In a meeting, you may hear a consensus building around an idea that feels fundamentally out of alignment. Where once you might have remained silent, doubting your own perception, you now speak your truth simply and without aggression. The authority is not in the volume of your voice, but in the stillness from which it emanates. You are not invested in being right. You are simply giving voice to the clarity that is present, leaving the results to life itself. This often carries a surprising power, not of personality, but of truth, cutting through layers of negotiation and polite fiction. This inner authority utterly revolutionizes your relationship with spiritual or philosophical teachings. You can read the words of the greatest masters, and instead of receiving them as commandments from a higher authority, you recognize them as beautiful confirmations of what you already know within your own depths. You discern truth from falsehood not by the reputation of the speaker, but by the resonance in your own heart of silence. A teaching may be profound, but if it carries the scent of dogmatism or the subtle demand for adherence, you let it pass without internal debate. Your own experience is the final arbiter. You have moved from belief to knowing, and this knowing is not a possession, but a state of being. The engagement with this final sign is to surrender completely to its governance, to allow it to dissolve the last vestiges of the seeker, who looked outside for permission to be. The mind will recoil, screaming about the dangers of solipsism, of hubris, of error. It will beg for the safety of external rules and authorities. You must walk through this fear. This inner authority is not the rule of an inflated ego. It is the humble obedience of the individual consciousness to the divine consciousness that it is. It is the point where the wave realizes its own water, nature, and moves in perfect harmony with the ocean, needing no separate navigation. Consider a moment of moral ambiguity. A situation offers a personal advantage if you are willing to compromise a subtle inner principle. Before, the battle would have been between desire and a learned rule. Now, there is no battle. The inner compass points unerringly. To ignore it is to feel yourself moving instantly into the darkness of self-betrayal. There is no external judge, no fear of karmic punishment, only the immediate, internal experience of alignment or discord with your source. This is living from integrity at the most cosmic level. This awakened authority is the culmination of all the previous signs. The inner stillness is its throne. The loss of anchors removed the competing loyalties. Seeing through the illusion dissolved external authorities. Impersonal love is its compassionate expression. The end of seeking cleared the channel for its voice, and now it speaks. It guides your life with an invisible hand, leading you into experiences not for personal gain, but for the further unfolding of consciousness itself. You are no longer a ship tossed on the ocean of life, seeking a safe harbor. You have realized you are the ocean, and every movement, every current, every wave is your own intelligent, purposeful expression. You have come home to the only authority that ever was or can be the silent, sovereign majesty of your own immortal being.